I'm making a little, I think I'm going to make a zipper pouch out of kind of embroidered pieces and old fabrics, probably some new fabrics as well. The kind of mushroom pink linen underneath is reclaimed from a bed sheet that kind of wore out in the middle but is okay on the sides. And some tiny little bits and pieces that I just wanted to celebrate, I guess. And this is what I've played with so far. This is just laid down, it's on the pink linen, and the pink linen is on a piece of batting, and I'm going to stitch it all together. And I want there to be room for some of my own kind of wild stitching, and I'm not sure if this is too much or if I should go even more. Like, I'm still considering where my composition lies. But people are often asking how I put things together, and basically I just play with stuff until I'm happy with it. I seem to have added more rather than taken stuff away. I think I quite like it. I'm a little bit concerned about, in the bottom right corner, the leaf there that is from a vintage lace is perhaps the only kind of lacy element, although there is the kind of dirty aqua kind of lacy bit as well. No, I think we'll go with it and see how it comes together. I've just walked into my bedroom and my husband and I just said, we were going to watch a movie together, but I like to watch it on the iPad so I can stitch at the same time because I don't need my glasses. And he has set up the bed like this. He's made the bed, and then which I just walked out of this morning, he was off really early doing something with one of the kids, and he's put my sewing on the bed for me. This is how 25 years of marriage works. And look, he's got a really nice light by his bed, and I've got like the industrial strength kind of, it's not on really strong actually at the moment, but industrial strength sewing light over there. Ladies, you need a man that puts your sewing in bed. It's Sunday morning, and after putting together the composition of this last night, I did a little bit of work on it while my husband and I watched some TV. And this is where I'm at on Sunday morning. On the bottom left-hand corner, I've kind of added some kind of cancer type stitching to hold that together. And lots of the bits and pieces are kind of stitched down with what I would call invisible stitches. And I use that Metla thread that I recommend for everything to do that. It's the best thread. It just doesn't, it hides so well. And then on the top of that yellow bit, I'm thinking of adding a little bit of kind of chicken scratch embroidery. And I haven't quite resolved the bit down the bottom middle where the little pink scrap is pinned. That's a vintage fabric. And I'm not sure really what else to say about this. It's where I'm at. I am tempted to make it into another needle book, but I do not need another needle book. It's so cute though. I am loving putting these things together. It's always interesting where you get drawn with your work. I think I'm liking it in the same way that I tend to like making zipper pouches to be a little bit of a project that I complete amongst a big quilt. I am a type of person that needs a sense of completion at times. So I'm working on a couple of big quilts, and this is just a little thing that I can work on and finish. I think that's what's going on. Anyway, I'm really happy with it. We go kind of closer. You can see the cancer stitching here. I've added a little bit of kind of wild lazy daisies over here. Partly, can't get it there. I wanted that center of that wild one to be like it just to look a little bit, I don't know, crazy, I guess. And the yo-yo is stitched down on the edge with that metler thread. I do really like the little mauve, it's not mauve, violet, maybe violet, orange and yellow stitching from a vintage piece. So this is where we're up to. Still Sunday morning here, and my husband has my youngest at some activities he does on Sunday mornings. I am about to drop my second youngest to work. My 17-year-old third youngest, or second oldest, he's still asleep, and my daughter has been grumpy. So, you know, it swings around about. Sometimes it's one child, sometimes it's another child that's grumpy. Today it's Em's turn. So I'm in my studio. I'm going to turn you around and show you what I'm dealing with. It's a bit of a mess, but it's an organized mess in terms of I know where everything goes. I just wanted to show you while this cutting table is out from the wall a little bit, how I store some stuff. Now in these boxes here are quilt pulls that I'm not working on, or this box is a box of slow stitching, kind of bigger pieces or scale florals and things that I might use for something like that from my personal collection. But over at the back are 2 boxes of quilt pulls that I'm not really working on, and one at the bottom there. The pink tub, I think, has yarn in it. So this is not ideal. When the cutting table is pushed in, and that red tub, which I'm not sure what's in there, we'll have a look, is pushed in, you cannot access them. It's a little storage area behind, because that is a repurposed kitchen bench from IKEA. Now, this is the space I have to work in, so it has to work. Like, that's the system I've come up with for me, but it's not ideal. I'm going to put this space back together, and then I might do a little tour of my little sewing area. Now, I'm not sure if I'm in frame here, but I wanted to start with a part of my sewing area that doesn't work particularly well for me. This is a closed cupboard from IKEA, and I have a lot of IKEA furniture in this room just because IKEA does good storage often. I would much prefer, and I'm hoping that's in your frame, like little wooden shelves and antique bits and bobs, but I just need good storage. And it doesn't work for me for a couple of reasons. I've got it closed because it's the Liberty, like closed doors. Liberty, I really don't want it to be light affected. It's expensive, and I feel like this is quite an investment, but I have it a couple of ways. So I've got 2 boxes of what I call on the side, and the labeling really does help me because I don't have to open everything up to find it, a Liberty Rainbow. So it's the prints that just, you know, I've bought because I love them rather than they're a particular print that I might collect. Except for, I mean, there's Alice in there. But so if I want to go and find some green Liberty, I probably can. It's just that it's not on easy display. And if it's not on easy display, I find that I don't use it very much. I also have Capel and Friends, or Capel and Friends, I'm not even sure. There's some Betsy in there, some Neon Betsy. There's my Capel collection. So I collect 3 Liberties. Capel, Betsy and Alice. So I also have a big box which is just my Betsy, or most of my Betsy. And that's a little bit smaller than it used to be because we've done those Betsy challenges for a couple of years, or Betsy sew-alongs. This year I'm planning a sew-along, but not with Liberty. You'll have to stay tuned to see what it's going to be. So that's how they live. It's a bit awkward to get them in and out, but it's the best way I've determined. I probably could stack them
in here, which might make it easier if I open them. But I tend to get them out of there because I've only got small bits of Most Liberty, and I need to, like, you know, they don't stack very well. They get hidden in the kind of the stack, I guess. Whereas if you pull them out and then you grab a section and sort through, I find that easier. I also sort my Liberty scraps, so I've got just very small ones, I've got Capel scraps, I've got Betsy scraps, and then I've got bigger scraps down the bottom. And then the last little thing in here is my little box of Hello Kitty. I don't have heaps of it. I do have quite a few prints. I love it very much. It's really expensive, and that's why I don't have very much. So that's my Liberty storage. Now, the general fabric storage works a lot better for me. I can see what I'm dealing with. It's rainbowized because I tend to work in, I work out what colours I want in a quilt, and then I pull from that colour and then see that the colours go together nicely. So we've got low volumes, blues, blacks, greens, yellows, oranges, pinks, browns. Browns are really important. I say it every time, probably. Brown is a really important colour to put in a quilt, especially if you're wanting a vintage feel and you don't want it to feel too primary. And then some, like, this is my Petit Pan collection. There's actually quite a bit of those in quilt pools. A little bit of Carolyn Freelander, and I find that easy to see what I'm after, to pull from it. I will pull out a whole section and sort through my greens if I'm looking for particular green fabrics. I like it on display, I guess, much better than how the Liberty works. But as I explained, there's a reason for that. And then in this cupboard over here, I'm just going to move you along a little bit, hopefully. That's my Heather Ross. So I have quite a lot of it. This pile up here is the whole new Forestberg collection. I buy it whenever I can. So if I find old ones, that's a bit of a shame. I just found these two little bits of the linen Far, Far and Away, which was from the original collection I think I found it on eBay. I search for it kind of semi-regularly on eBay and Etsy, and if I can ever find anything for a reasonable price that I'm after and want, then I purchase it. And the bits in front here are just kind of more little bits. The back bits at the back, I rainbowize that as well. It's not in collection, except for just at the top here is all the little bits that I have. And I don't have them all. I didn't buy them all, but of the Heather Ross by hand that she did. Now she just released some re-release of Lightning Bugs, I think. But it wasn't available to ship outside of Australia, so I couldn't get any of it, which was a shame. When she did the by hand, it was, and I bought it. And I've also got the little strawberry, but that's in the new quilt that I am making at the moment, so it's over there. So that's my fabric storage of all my quilting cottons, all my linen, all my Heather Ross, except for what's in my quilt pools. And I do keep a lot of it because people often say, got so little fabric. I've got a lot more than it looks like here. I think we've always got more fabric than it looks like. So above the area where I store my fabric, I just have a wall where I display some items. This isn't a very wide room that we're in, which means I don't really want to put more shelving on the walls because it cuts into the space visually. I have some collected artworks from various places, including ones that I've made myself. I have my Amanda Banham village. I've been collecting that for, I don't know, quite some time. I can't remember how long, maybe 4 years, maybe 5 years. And it's pretty sweet. I just picked up, I got for Christmas, a castle and this little house here with the scallops. and the flower house. So a couple of the first ones I got were the little one at the bottom there on the pink bridge and the magic shop and I think the plant shop. They were my first ones. I've expanded that out. I would, you know, if money weren't an issue, I would add some more different colors in there. But, you know, it's always budget of what we need to spend our money on or want to spend our money on perhaps. I do love mine. It brings me a lot of joy. The little brown one down there always makes me laugh because for a while, I just could not buy anything in her auctions, Amanda's auctions, because they just went so quickly until I worked out Apple Pay was the answer. And this one got left behind maybe for an hour and I bought him because I felt sorry for him. Maybe because he's brown, I don't know. And then this here is a little vintage needle holder that my mother-in-law gave to me from her family. Some little things, little sumo man, teapot. You saw me buy that little artwork not that long ago. Little vintage sewing box, that green one, really lovely. I really love this. I don't know what to do with it, but I just love it. And then these two things here are a couple of my favorite things. The heart was made for me by my daughter Emma, and then I make those little nichos out of sardine cans, and it's like a reciprocal of goodwill. So that one's for my husband and me. Sometimes we need the goodwill. Okay, I am going to put you basically on a music stand actually, so that I can point out various areas in this space. Actually, I'm not going to do that. I thought it would be hard to show you all these things. So I'm in a modern room. I actually really prefer old things. We've got an old house, but this is an extension that we did to it. And because of the space that I have, I've had to use a lot of IKEA furniture and containers because that is IKEA does really good, efficient storage. So here we have like another vintage sewing box up there, a beautiful basket, a couple of ceramic pieces. This little stove here is a big favorite. In this little white tub, there is projects that I would like to work on soon. They're mainly little things like zipper pouches or maybe a needle book of things I've put together. This is a pile of vintage tablecloths, or that's a tapestry on top. And they're, I don't know, they'll be used in something, but they're very beautiful. This little book I picked up in New Zealand and it makes me incredibly happy. It's like an old book of somebody's threads for needlework. Just love it. So that's something that's beautiful. Down the bottom I have the books that I have. I don't have heaps. And my tin collection. And so this is another area. So the white tubs here that aren't working for me very well at the moment. And that's because I've introduced a lot more vintage textiles since working on the Gosling quilt. So I'll talk about that when I'm not panning around. That's an art piece that I have done. I'm going to call it art, and inspired heavily by Fleur Woods, and it's got some vintage textiles woven in. There's lots of different flowers, and I really love it. So this is my tiny design wall. At the moment, it's got my 4th tiny trips on blocks on it, some of them. I've got lots more than that actually. But it was just to kind of inspire me to get back to that. I am not starting any more quilts until I get a couple of my others under control. And I keep my quilts, I keep everything that I'm using for them in terms of fabric and patterns and acrylic templates, etc., together, and they are stored under here. I'm going to go through one of those boxes so you can see how I do it. And that does work really well for me. They're all labeled at the front. I kind of went crazy with a Dymo label maker I bought for myself, and it's really, it's good, and that works for me. Over here, I'm still working on this area. I've got lots of wooden and old bits because, as I said, that's what I prefer, but it is a new desk. It's got my machine on it. I have an industrial machine that just does a straight stitch. I have a little Janome as well that does other things, but I really don't do a lot of sewing except for patchwork, or zipper pouches. I only need the straight stitch. It's a little pile of things that I'm working on, like that little project that I will have shown at the start of this video. And I've just put some more fabrics with that because I'm going to make it expand it out. This little box here just is the cutest little tin that's beautiful. Just filling up this area kind of at the moment. And I've just brought those 2 wooden shelves home. So that one up the top is empty. I feel like I can add some more stuff now. I can collect some more little bits and pieces. But that's my sewing area. Family desk area down here. I do have some storage in this white cabinet of, actually I'll open it up and we'll show you. So in here I have that bag at the top there is scraps, and that's where my scraps are at the moment, which is very pleasing to me. Little bits and pieces, just in that yellow container. At the back of the bottom shelf, there is bits, like little bits of batting. Then there's a tub of wool felt or felted wool, and then at the bottom, a container that's got modern kind of trimmings in it and like leftover quilt bindings, etc. So that's the entire area I have. I'm going to show you a quilt pull that does work, and then I'm going to show you why my vintage stuff isn't working so well for me at the moment. So I'm going to show you what I do with one of my quilts, and I might, I don't know which one to show you now. Maybe I'll show you the grandmother's flower garden quilt because it's the least advanced and kind of so in its most, I guess, basic form. So I'm making like a traditional grandmother's flowers garden quilt. I wanted to do that with like lots of Liberty and like gentle tiny florals, bit of a pastel kind of color palette, but with some pops of neon in there as well. Liberty's really good for their pops of neon. So I've got this beautiful one with neon, got some Petit Pan neons, some Betsy, just lots of beautiful tiny florals. So I keep everything, and this is the whole quilt pool as it is at the moment. All the fabrics that I have chosen to use are in here. Also the flower blocks that I have made, and also the quilt top that I have started putting together. And that's in this box here. And then in addition to that, I also have some prepped hexies, glue pen, 1-inch hexies because it's a 1-inch hexie quilt, and some like ones I might reuse. has some little zipper pouches with combos that I've chosen. I love a little zipper pouch and I love how useful they are. Another one. So that's how I keep my quilt pulled together. I know exactly where I'm up to with it. I've got the quilt, the materials I'm using, anything specific to this quilt all together in one area. And that works super well for me. Sometimes the quilt pull is bigger, like, I will show you this one quickly. This is my 4th tiny trip, which was the one that was on my design wall. So it's currently in 4 boxes. I have additional blocks for the quilt that are complete in the top there. And then in this one, I have a lot of zipper pouches. And as I prep each block, I put it into a zipper pouch to keep it together. And then there's more fabrics in this one than the last quilt pull. I've got it rainbowized in here so that I can pull from it. And I keep all the little scrappy bits because those quilt blocks, well, one, I love to use scraps, but the centers of them are just one tiny little square. So it might be that I can use that somewhere. I've cut it for something and not used it, but I keep all of the scraps as well together while I'm working. And then I also have, so I'm using Jenkin Wells postcard project number 1 to do mine. And I keep that in there as well with the little templates so that I can use it. So that's how a quilt pull works for me. In direct contrast to what is working well for me, my vintage fabrics are not working so well for me. So these are the 2 bigger pieces that I'm working on at the moment, and they're okay there. That's, like, they're not the neatest there. I like neat, and I like vintage, and I like organised. So they're not the real problem. I bought a vintage sheet online, which I thought might be really nice to back a quilt with. It's big, and it's just sitting there at the moment because I haven't done anything with it. I am making a collection of fabrics that Vintage Cotton Fabric sent me all those beautiful fabrics, and she and I were chatting about, I don't know what to send her to say thank you, because I can't, like, I don't have as many beautiful fabrics as her. And she said she would quite like some bits and pieces from the shop that were modern pieces that are reproductions. So I've been starting to collect those for her, and I will be sending them to her. And so they're just sitting there at the moment as well. When I Vintage Cotton Fabric, this is what she sent me, like this amazing collection of vintage fabrics. She sent them to me for a quilt, and I probably will make a quilt with them. I haven't decided which one. At the moment, I've just been cutting into very little bits of them to put into things like my needle books. Wonder if there's a tiny little scrap is from that collection. I am having trouble using the fabric, even though I say use the fabric all the time to people, because I've bought fabric in the past and now I don't love it. So that's what can happen. So I'm just going to push that down the table. Hopefully it's not too much in your view. This is the thing that is really not working for me. I have some vintage, I actually have a whole vintage quilt in here, like a little quilt, but I have some beautiful vintage quilt blocks, and I don't know how to store them so that I potentially am inspired by them or incorporate them into something I'm working. They're just sitting in this box at the moment, and that's I mean, so that's not so big a problem. This is the problem. I have fully become obsessed with vintage fabric. And I had a little box with it collected in there, and now I have this bigger box, and it doesn't all fit in here. So it's like this. They are reclaimed, they are bits and pieces I pick up online, bits from furniture, aprons. Sometimes I've been gifted bits and pieces or swapped bits and pieces. Some of them are definitely not quilting. Like this one is I don't want to say it's a hairsham, but you know, it's pretty lovely. Got some vintage tea towels up the end here. They're just, and I'm tending to kind of mix them into quilt pools. Maybe I should put them into just my general fabric pool. That might work best for me, but I've got too much for the current storage method. So these are ones that I have got recently or brought home from the shop. So sometimes when I buy a bit of fabric, I keep a bit for me and I put a bit into the shop, sometimes into the vintage textiles packs. Sometimes it just sells in the shop. And I am doing a market, it's my first, not a market, a quilt show in July in Sydney. And I'm planning on taking lots of vintage bits and pieces to that. So the two fabrics, I think I showed in the last video that I picked up, I've cut my bits of those off and put them in here. And the rest I'm going to take into the shop. So this isn't working for me. It's not, it doesn't let me see what I've got. It doesn't let me easily combine it with other fabrics. And then what I tend to do is I've got a quilt that's modern fabrics or a quilt that's old fabrics, and potentially I want to do a bit more of a quilt that's all the fabrics. And that's why my Liberty storage isn't working particularly well for me as well, because sometimes I forget to include it. Anyway, I'm hoping that this little video might have been helpful for somebody. It's, you know, the way that you store and use your fabric is super personal, and it depends on the space that you've got. I've only got the space that I've shown you, and I need to make that work. So if you've got a bigger studio, I'm sure you can do lots more beautiful things. And just before I finish, I just thought I'd show you a couple of the beautiful things that I have collected. Those vintage, those stars at the top, those Liberty stars, I actually had made for the shop, and then I sold them, maybe not this Christmas, the Christmas before. It's a little needle book that I made. Look at that little thing of threads and a little tapestry purse. Lots of lovely little things. Wooden shelf here. I think I showed this, but not maybe in great detail. Just a collection of things that are special to me. So that's where we're at. Let me know if you've got any suggestions for things that work for you, or you know, if you found any of this useful for your own sewing area. I hope it has been helpful to somebody. Happy stitching.